Okay.
That week, I knew that God was real and that He loved me, and I'd never be alone.
Coming out of the water, that was different.
This is my story.
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 This is my story. I'm Carol Moore. My husband and I have been attending for about, I don't know, maybe 17 years or so. We go to second service, and I help out in the preschool department. We were looking for a new church, and we knew several people that went here to church. And so we decided that we would try it out. We tried a couple other churches and just felt very much at home. Tim and I have been married over 50 years, and we have 2 sons. Matt lives in Mowequa, where we do, and he has a wife, Megan, and they have 2 children, Sam and Emma. You'll see Sam as the tall young man walking around, pushing Emma in the wheelchair. Our other son, Drew, lives out in Las Vegas with his wife, Lane, and they have 4 children. All 4 of them are teenagers. They have 3 in high school. For 34 years, I taught in Decatur Public Schools. I was a teacher, then a librarian, and then finished out my career as a library resource specialist for the district. I retired, but I continued to do some consulting work for Decatur schools. Then Tim got his degree from Lincoln Seminary in counseling after he retired from teaching, and started working at Decatur Psychological Associates, and I started volunteering there. Now I am the office manager at Decatur Psychological, and so we have several therapists there, and it's a mission for us. It's a way that we can serve. When I wake up, I'm ready to go. Tim is not at all ready. So it's ever since we've been married, I go into work early, and that way he can have the morning to himself. And so that, that works out nicely because when I'm up, I'm ready to go. I've thought and thought about that question. I don't know. I mean, we have old pictures that we have no idea who they are, so they probably should just be gotten rid of. We also have some VHS tapes that probably need to move on. Other than we do have a VHS player still that works, so we might someday look at them. Probably not.
Now, you've told me you have a basement full of furniture, right?
Yes.
And none of that needs to go? It's all good? It's all good?
Well, according to Tim, it needs to go. But somebody might need it sometime. Every once in a while, somebody will go in there and pull something out and use it. So,
Sounds like we need to go over and go shopping.
yeah, exactly. Or, Tim seems to think when Sam gets his apartment, he will clean it out.
He might. No.
No.
Not that good of furniture?
Well, it's quite a mixture.
Mm.
Everybody's remains. There's a pressure cooker downstairs I should get rid of because we don't have all the parts to it. Kindle, fiction, mindless fiction. By the time I've worked all day, I just need mindless Christian fiction. It's pretty much what I read. Mm-hmm. We really like Downton Abbey. We watch a lot of British comedies, dramas, and a lot of travel shows because I like to travel.
What is it about the British shows that are just so good?
Mm-hmm. I think they take you away to a different place.
They seem so much more civilized than us.
Mm-hmm. Well, not the Gilded Age, but, hey, that was a good show. Texas Roadhouse we like. Also Porter's. I like Porter's downtown.
What are you eating?
Steak and French onion soup.
How do you have your steak cooked?
Medium well. Well,
Oh.
medium. I've gone to medium now because medium well is pretty dry. Baked potato, butter, and salad with French or honey mustard dressing. Having my family around and just thoughts, pretty much thoughts of my family, you know. We're just so blessed. And so that puts me in a good mood. When the cleaning lady comes, that's one of my favorite days. A friend of ours that's cleaned for us for about 50 years, and she takes good care of us. And so that puts me in a really good mood to go home and know that everything's clean, smells good. I don't like to waste time. Reading, I suppose, to relax. Pretty much at our house, we're pretty goal-oriented. There ought to be something that we're working on, or it can even be relaxing, like reading. I don't really think of reading as a waste of time because it's giving me time to just chill, I'm good at organizing. I'm good at, hopefully, I'm good at making people feel at ease, so that they feel cared about and listened to. That's what I spend a lot of my time doing with the work that I do. The therapists kid us and say that Victoria and I are the pre-sessions because it's just important that people feel at home and feel relaxed. And so, I think I'm good at that. Well, I really liked my bicycle, but one of my favorite things was a little red plaid suitcase. And I guess it was kind of a precursor to my always wanting to go somewhere. I was always packing it so that I was ready whenever we were going to go to my aunt's house or to grandma's or to wherever. And I still have that little red suitcase. It's down in the basement. And I don't let the kids play with it. It's just a little cardboard suitcase. And it was just one of my favorite things. I used to do a lot of handwork. I did a lot of counted cross stitch, and I would always do it on the linen, so you did 2 over 2, so you couldn't really see the holes and all of that. And I can't do that anymore. My hands won't do it. And so I wished I can do a little bit of embroidery or a little bit of crocheting, but I would like to have done more crocheting, knitting. Sauerkraut. I like the smell of sauerkraut. I know that's weird, but I do. I like the smell of sauerkraut. When we go over the Staley Bridge, and Sam would call it the Stinky Bridge, and it wasn't that terrible. A flat tire, because that means you have issues, and anytime I've had a flat tire, I've been by myself. And so I had to call somebody to help me. that and, with teaching, the chalk, the scraping of the chalk. I would really like to go back and witness, not live in, but witness some of the miracles that Jesus performed. And I'd like to see Mary and Martha. I relate so much to Martha. And just see the interaction that Jesus had with them. I also would like to go back to some of the early times in Rome. Some of those things I find very interesting. I don't want to be there. I don't want to have to live in those times. But I would like to see them. I think my biggest fear is being alone, without my family. But, we're assured that God's always with us. But that's one thing that just really I think about from time to time as Tim and I are getting older. I wouldn't go back very far. I probably would go back a few years just because our health would be better. But, we've had so many really good times. We've been so blessed that, if you go back too far, well, then you don't have this one or that one, or you don't have those experiences that you enjoy thinking about. So I'm fairly content where I am. Back maybe BC before cancer, maybe, but beyond that, I'm happy where I am. Part of it, Tim will tell you that it was awful. It was hard. There again, I was so blessed it was caught very early, that they were able to get it all. So most of my treatments, the chemo and the radiation, and the infamous cancer pill, were just preventative, So I was very, very blessed. It wasn't easy, but you just plowed right through. I mean, I knew that after my first treatment, I didn't have really any side effects. And so I thought, okay, this is good. The kids from Vegas were coming that next week for Thanksgiving. I thought, this is good. It's going to be in between treatments. We're going to piece of cake. Well, it hit. And it was not a piece of cake. The girls took over and did a wonderful job with Thanksgiving and all. But through the treatments, I just learned that I'd have the treatment on Wednesday. Thursday, I'd be fine. By Friday evening, I would be asleep in the chair and would sleep off and on for the next couple of days. Monday and Tuesday, I wouldn't feel well. Wednesday, I'd go to work. And Thursday, I'd go to work. Next weekend, it'd be all right. Be okay for 3 or 4 days. Then it was time for another treatment. And you just kind of followed that pattern, And so, I mean, that's just what I did. And I guess all I had to do was go into the chemo room, treatment room. And, Harold told me where to sit. He said, now, Carol, you want to sit over in this row because you can look out. And he was exactly right, because I could not handle watching other people get their chemo. I could hear their buzzers going off, when their bags were empty and they needed another bag. No, I could not handle watching other people. So I sat in the back row that looked out the windows in the parking lot and the trees and all, because I just couldn't handle that. But all you had to do was look around and realize how blessed you were. And so that helped. There were some physical side effects from it that were rough, and that I still kind of suffer from some. But, I'm here and going and doing, the day Tim shaved my head. That was a hard day. We had come to church that morning. We decided we're going to do it that afternoon. We parked out here at the end of the church, and it was windy. And I looked in the air, and there was hair flying. It was just blowing all over the place, and I thought, yeah, it's time. But that was hard, But, yeah, it was just part of it. Yeah, we went out in the garage, and both of us cried. But, just, it had to be done. And, it was okay.
How did your faith pull you through that?
I guess that's where all this acceptance it just was. And I tried my best to look around and see how blessed I was. I'll never forget many a Sunday, Don Reynolds and he'd look at me because when I was going through my treatments, he had treatments, but he was better. And I'd come to church and pretty much find the first chair I could find to sit down. And Don would say, well, how are you doing? I said, oh, just fine. And he'd just look at me and, yeah. And I think we were able to encourage each other as we both went through the hard times. Because he knew Tim was right there with me. And I had several friends, that did. And, they were really understanding at work. I mean, because I didn't miss much work. They thought I was crazy to be there, but I couldn't sit at home. All you did was realize how bad you felt. And the chemo didn't make me sick. It made me very, very tired. And so you felt rotten. And, I would work as long as I could work. And I could always tell when it was time. And I'd get my purse and I'd go sit in one of the chairs in the lobby and sit there a while before I got enough energy to go, the next part. But, I just accepted this as what it was and how blessed I was. Because, you don't have to look very far and see gobs worse, harder. Well, I think caring and hopefully helpful. And I try to be an encourager. Tim would say my diet Dr. Pepper. I would say carbs. I like bread, really like bread. But those are the things that are the hardest. People of faith. Because otherwise, there's no, So I think the jobs might be a variety of different jobs. But if the spirit of being willing to be committed and do a good job at whatever the job is, if you don't have that, then you don't have anything. And that's how the world hopefully can stay together as far as staying meaningful, for people.
So do you mean more like work ethic or do you mean purpose?
I think both. You have to have work ethic, but you don't have a very good work ethic if you don't see some purpose. And, as Christians, our purpose is to tell others and to be the example that we need to be. But, and if we don't have that, we don't have anything. I had really a hard time with that one. I guess this sounds silly, but I don't really feel like I've missed out on much. You know, I've been able to do jobs that I enjoyed, been able to have a family and children and grands. And I consider my daughter-in-laws as daughters. I mean, they're my girls. I don't think I've missed out on much. Always wanted to be a teacher. I just enjoyed being able to be there for the kids, you know, and back in that day, I mean, you know, realize I've been retired now for, oh my goodness, 20 years. And I started teaching in 1970. And in those days, you could give a kid a hug. You could pat them on the back. You could give them the encouragement that they needed. And you can do some of that now, but not to the extent that you could. And, you know, you felt like you were important to that child and that you were really helping them become the people that they needed to be. Meeting Tim. And then our boys and the grands, you know. But we've just been so blessed.
How did you meet Tim?
I was in my last quarter, back in those days, Eastern was on quarters. At Eastern, I was going to be student teaching in the fall. And so I was going to summer school because I went through in a little over 3 years. And Tim's roommate was going to summer school, good friend of mine. We all belonged to the Baptist Student Union, group of kids. And so Tim came over, spent the weekend with Steve, and actually came, I think, to invite another girl out on a date. And then we just ended up together that weekend, and that was where it started.
So how long did you date before you got married?
8 months, maybe a little longer than that. We met in July, and then we got married the next May. We were married for 5 years. Then we had Matt, and then a couple years later had Drew. And I wouldn't switch the 5 years for anything. You know, it was good to have time together to grow and learn. The worst memory is the hard one. I think it was a time period. We've had 2 or 3 different times in our lives that have been really, really hard. And when the girls were born was a very, very hard time. Matt and Megan were expecting twins, and they came very early. Thank goodness they had Megan over at Champaign. And so Emma and Caitlin were born very early. Emma weighed 1 pound 3 ounces. She was a big girl. And Caitlin just weighed 15 ounces. And we almost lost Meg. And it was a really hard several months. It was a time that our 2 boys grew closer together, I think, because Matt had decisions that had to be made, and Drew was there to help him. And so, and Lane was there to help support. But Caitlin lived for 2 days. And I will always be thankful that the night before she passed, we sent Matt home because, of course, Sam wasn't home, and everybody was kind of helping out with him, and so I was able to. I was up in the NICU and just sat and visited with the girls and talked to them a lot, and then in the night they called because Megan had pulled her breathing tube out, and they said she wants to go see the girls, and so they pumped her full of pain medicine, and we went upstairs, and I was over. They have a house for people that have children in the NICU, and so I'd only been over there a couple hours because I stayed with the girls till midnight or a little after. About 2 or 3 in the morning, they called me, and I came over and took Meg upstairs, and so she was able to see both of the girls. And so, that was a hard time. We didn't have a service for Caitlin for a little while, and because, Emma was on the edge. I'll always be thankful that I had that time with the girls, with Caitlin. But, it was a hard time. Oh, I don't know that I did very well. I mean, I'm not a very deep thinker, really. No, maybe not deep thinker. I don't question things much. I believe the Bible. I believe what it says. I don't question why different parts of it are what they are. I just accept it. And I think that's what I did with this. This is where we are. This is what we have to do. And so we're just going to do it. As a parent, you felt helpless because the kids were going through so much. Emotionally, physically. I mean, it was a lot. And so, you felt like you really weren't much help. You just were there to listen and be there and help them as you could.
It's funny because you say you weren't much help, but then you also said you were the one who was able to be there for them. So it sounds like you were just a lot.
Well, you just had to. I mean, you just did what you felt like you needed to do, And along the way, different people joined in and helped. I think the prayers of people, and the caring made all the difference in the world. I'm not a real big hugger either, but I think just showing concern, talking to people, listening to them makes a lot of difference, I was raised in a pretty strict Southern Baptist family and church. And when I was 6 years old, Mrs. Wallerman was my Sunday school teacher. And I accepted Christ then.
At 6?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Really young. But, I just felt very committed. Patience. Tim and I have had a few health issues, not major, like, some people, but just being patient with getting older. And in my mind, I can still do, and take part in things and all, but the body doesn't follow suit. And so I think, patience with ourselves as far as realizing that there are restrictions now that there didn't used to be. Why did he put up with all of these humans all this time? We just are so stupid. We do such dumb things, and we know what's right, and yet we don't always follow. And when you look around the world and all the different things that are going on, why didn't he just say we're done? I think my personality lends itself to being a mentor, but all of us are mentors because someone's watching us, someone's seeing how we react to different situations, and so we are teaching others all the time. When Tim and I were first married, there were different women along during the years that took me under their wing and shared advice with me and listened to me. And that was so important during those years. Some of them were through the church, some were through the schools, different friends that I met along the way. And so that made all the difference for me because I saw how important that was and felt how important that was. And so I just have felt like you need to pass it forward. You need to be willing to do. And it doesn't have to be a formal kind of thing, just being willing to listen to others.
So how did you get into because I am not your first mentee. You, from what I understand, do you know how many mentees you've had over the years?
No, I don't have any idea. And you kind of, some, I guess you'd say more casual, some more formal. I've, over the years with different young people, teens and young marrieds, Tim and I have worked with, or we've worked individually with either the guy or the gal. And so that has been, over the years, a lot of different people. More formally, I would say, with a Bible study group that I had, started out with just one young lady in it, and then there were two, and then there were three. And I've worked a lot with them over the years, and still do with those three. There have been other ones that have come and gone. As far as they've had needs, they've come, asked for guidance, and hopefully I've been able to help them a little bit, and then they move on. Well, first of all, I think the person has to be willing to be open to listening to someone. You have to be open to that. Then the other part of it is, I think you have to realize you don't have all the answers, and that whatever your mentee brings to you, you may not know. And that you don't have to have all the answers. What you have to have is the listening and the willingness to pray with them and the willingness to help them look for some of the answers that they need. Because some of the problems, I'm not going to say they aren't solvable, but they sure aren't solvable in short order. They've got to be long term. I think as far as being equipped to be a mentor, there really isn't any formal training to do. Now, you can have formal training, but you need to be a listener. You need to be willing to keep your mouth shut and let the person talk, get all of their ideas together. And you need to be in prayer as they're sharing those ideas for what you're going to say. Because we all have had experiences and we've had different kinds of experiences. And that's what the person is coming to you to get help with. But you need to be a listener. It isn't always helping somebody. It is more about encouraging and knowing that they have somebody to talk to when they seem overwhelmed or feel overwhelmed with what's going on in their lives. So there's no, not really a formality about it. It's more being available and listening. Problems are universal. And so there may be a different time, a different age, a different circumstance, but at the root of what's going on, they're all pretty much standard. And so we've all had experiences that were similar. And you just need to be honest. And you have to be willing to share that, this is the way I messed that up. Think about what you're going to do. Think about, don't just go off and decide. You need to put some thought and prayer into it. We all hold back on different things, and it's not easy to open up. It takes a lot of trust. It's not easy to trust. And, I'm just glad I can be of a little bit of help along the way. And that's what a mentor is.
Yeah.
You don't have to be trained in all of the jargon of all the different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be open and listening. And I think there are a lot of people in our church that would be outstanding mentors.
Yeah.
Because they have had experiences, they are willing to share, they have hearts that care about others, and they would be fantastic mentors. They don't have to be called a mentor. They don't have to have a label. What they need to do is just to be willing to listen. All of us have issues, and it's just important that those needs are met. Find someone that you feel like has that you can open up to, and then go and talk to them and say, would you be willing? I'm going through some things, or I'm raising these kids and I've just got lots of questions. Would you be willing to talk with me? It doesn't have to be that you have this problem, and you need to realize that you have a need and you're looking for someone to help fill that need.
So how much of our mental health crisis do you think comes from that lack of connection and people speaking into your lives that help you process that, like a counselor?
Well, I think a lot of it. Because, when someone comes to see a therapist, they have an issue that they need someone from outside their family, outside their circle of friends, to listen to and help them see from a little different perspective. A lot of people do not even have anyone to talk the problem over with to begin with. Other times, families are unique organizations, and they are a mixture of good, bad, and ugly. All of our families are. And sometimes it's hard to sort through where you fit in that. What I feel like is important for what I do is being there, being a friend, being someone that they can talk to and feel comfortable with, so that they can get whatever need in their life they have met. Sometimes how much I don't know, and also how it's a real responsibility. You know, if you're going to make the commitment to take an interest in somebody's life, that it isn't just on Tuesdays at 4 o'clock or whatever. It's when they need the help. You need to be willing to be available. Also, I think it's shown me different things in my life that I've needed to change or needed to accept or needed to pray harder about, a change of heart about. And, you know, I think that's when you're visiting with a friend, and that's what a mentor is. They're a friend who's willing to listen. A lot of times there's an age difference so that one has more experience, but it's just being willing to be there and listen.
And kick us in the butt.
Mm-hmm. I hope that my story says that I love Christ, that I'm willing to show Him to others, that I'm not perfect, and that I make mistakes and have flaws, but that overall, He's the one I'm following. Well, I believe in the mentor program and wanting to have more people involved in being mentors. So I think that's really important. I also think, as I have listened to and watched the other stories, it's been interesting to find out more about the different people in the congregation. So I think that's good. It's not something I'm very comfortable with, but it was what I should do.